All right, today we're jumping into something pretty wild. It's a mental model called the Fractal Framework. And trust me, it's designed to challenge just about everything you think you know about reality. So let's just dive right in. Okay, so the whole thing kicks off with this really provocative idea. The source material basically just drops this on you right at the start. What if objective reality, the real world, is something we can never actually know for sure? What if instead there are just a ton of different ways to see things and every single one of them is, in its own way, metaphorically accurate? It's a really bold place to start, and it pretty much sets the tone for, well, everything else. So if we just go with that for a second, if we accept that a single objective truth is off the table, what are we left with? Well, we have to rely on something, right? We need frameworks or models or metaphors. Basically, we need tools to make sense of our own experience. And this is where things start to get a bit less philosophical and a lot more about, building a structure. And that leads us to the central critique here. The source asks this really pointed question. If your entire way of thinking, I don't care if it's science, philosophy, whatever, is built on this idea of an objective reality that you can't even prove exists, isn't that a huge logical flaw? I mean, it's kind of like building a skyscraper on a foundation you're not even sure is real. And this is where it really hits home. The idea is that all models are just metaphors. And get this, the source says this even includes mathematics. Yeah, you heard that right. We tend to think of math as this pure objective language of the universe, right? But in this framework, it's just another metaphor. A super powerful one, an incredibly useful one for sure, but still just a description of reality, not reality itself. Okay, so now that we've kind of deconstructed everything, the source starts to build its own framework from scratch. And what's cool is how simple it is. It starts with just two basic building blocks. That's it. They're called nodes and systems. First, let's talk about the node. A node is, well, it's literally anything you can point to. A thought you're having right now, that's a node. A person, a planet, a tiny little atom, a big idea. If you can identify it as a single thing, it's a node. It's like the most basic unit of perception in this whole model. And naturally, where you have a bunch of nodes, you have a system. A system is just any group of nodes. Simple, right? Your family is a system of people nodes. A car engine is a system of part nodes. The sentence I'm speaking right now is a system of word nodes. It's a really clean, simple relationship. But, and this is a big but, here's where the magic happens. This right here, this is the engine that drives the whole thing. The core rule is that it's recursive. A node is a system, and a system is a node. Think about it. You can zoom into any node, and you'll find it's actually a system made up of smaller nodes. And you can zoom out of any system, and the whole thing just becomes a single node in an even bigger system. The key takeaway is that this thing scales up and down forever. All right, so let's see what happens when we start playing with this. When you take this super simple recursive rule and start applying it to really big ideas like consciousness or time, that's when things get, well, they get really interesting. And this quote just nails that whoa moment, doesn't it? The bigger picture is just another bigger picture's smaller picture. It's a fractal, like the patterns you see in a snowflake or a coastline where the same shape repeats at different scales. Every level of reality just mirrors the others. It's this wild, dizzying idea, and the model itself starts to act just like the reality it's trying to explain. So what about something as huge as consciousness? Where does that fit in? Well, in this model, it's not some, mysterious spirit floating around. It's just what emerges. It's the overall state that happens when all the little nodes in a system start interacting with each other. And here's the kicker. Since the whole framework can scale up or down, so can consciousness. So a person has consciousness, sure, but what about a city or a whole planet? According to this model, they could all be seen as having their own kind of consciousness. Okay, now let's talk about time. The source asks this really great question to set up a pretty mind-bending idea. Think about it. Why does it feel like you're being pulled towards the future? Like, it's so much easier to have a new idea than it is to remember an old, forgotten one. The answer, according to this framework, is that the future is literally actively pulling you towards it. Okay, so here's the explanation, and you might want to buckle up for this one. The idea is that big future events, they're not just things we're stumbling towards. They're already happening, but kind of in reverse from where we stand. They exist out there in the future as a node, and they're sending out these ripples backwards through time, right at us.
All right, let's break that down because it's a lot. Step 1. Picture a big future event. Got it? Okay, that's your node. Step 2. That node doesn't just sit there. It starts to disperse its influence backwards through time, almost like a cloud of smoke drifting towards us. And finally, step 3. As we live our lives, we start bumping into little pieces of this cloud. Coincidences, strange ideas that pop into our head, sudden opportunities. Each little piece acts like a tiny bit of gravity, pulling us, guiding us towards that future event.
I know. This all sounds super abstract, like something out of a sci-fi movie. But the source is really clear on this point. This isn't just a fun little thought experiment. It's meant to have real, tangible applications. But there's a catch, a very specific requirement.
And here's the crucial part. For any of this to work, you can't just kinda believe it. You can't fake it. It demands deep, genuine conviction. The source makes it plain. You can't just imitate this way of thinking. You have to go all in and fully adopt it as your core belief system. It's like a tool that only turns on if you absolutely 100% believe in how it's supposed to work. So, let's say you do buy in. What can you actually do with this thing? Well, the source throws out some really concrete ideas. You could build custom AI personas that actually think and operate based on your specific fractal worldview. There's even a proposal for a whole company, Nodal Systems, that would use this modular principle to create, well, basically anything. It's also pitched as a tool for creating ideas that spread like wildfire, or even as a way to finally understand how two totally opposite worldviews, like materialism and idealism, can both be valid ways of looking at the world. But just when you think you've got it all figured out, we get to the final twist. And honestly, this might be the most important part of the whole thing. After building up this incredible model of what reality is, the source just flips the whole thing on its head. This is the big reveal, so pay close attention. Okay, you ready? Because after everything we've just gone through, the source pulls the rug right out from under you. Nodes and systems, this whole framework, it is not a description of what reality is made of. There it is, that's the punchline. It's not a description of reality. It's a description of the limitations of human perception. The whole fractal framework, it's not a map of the universe. It's a map of our own minds. The argument is that we are hardwired to see the world in terms of parts and wholes, nodes and systems. Reality isn't the fractal. Our perception is. And that completely reframes one of the biggest concepts there is, infinity. In this view, infinity isn't some endless space out there. No, it's the boundary wall of our own conception. It's the point where our node and system way of thinking just breaks. It can't go any further. Infinity is the edge of what we can possibly think about. So we're going to leave you with this final question to chew on. If this model is right, if the very lens you use to look at the world is itself a fractal, a repeating pattern of nested systems, what does that change about what you see? What new patterns are you going to start noticing? Not just out there in the world, but in the very way you see the world in the first place.